I'm walking here along the LA River where it meets the Pacific Ocean in one of the busiest shipping ports in the world, Long Beach, California. While I'm sure there's a lot of nasty stuff that's coming down and out to the Pacific Ocean, I also know that there's a beautiful wildlife story that's trying to swim up it.
This is a steelhead trout. It lives its adult life in the ocean, but swims up freshwater streams and rivers to spawn inland. I'm on a mission to trace the route of this species along its historic 40-mile route from the Pacific Ocean in Long Beach through downtown Los Angeles to the spawning grounds in the mountains of Pasadena. Their route is cut off by human impacts. So I'm joining a team of scientists to better understand how this important wildlife migration can be restored.
Steelhead, they reproduce up in the upstream areas where the mountains are. There's a lot of barriers between here and the mountain areas where they reproduce, so there's dams where they actually can't pass.
And the goal is to essentially reconnect the LA River.
That's right.
At first glance, you wouldn't think that this is where we're going to find wildlife, where that trout live here, but that's what we're about to find out. I swore I wasn't getting in the LA River today, but then now here we are.
This is an example of what we don't want LA River to look like. There's no steelhead in this part of the river. Our project involves creating habitat structures needed for fish to migrate to get up into the headwaters.
This is an important spot for me to photograph because it shows what the area looks like before restoration efforts.
Only a few more miles up from the last spot, we make a quick stop to look at a section of river that illustrates what future restoration efforts might look like.
We're now further up the Los Angeles River, and as we get up here, you notice how much greener. There's more rocks, more pools, and things for fish. This area right here is a great example of what a restored LA River could look like.
Even though this area is good trout habitat, barriers upstream and downstream disconnect it from the ocean. So, still no trout here either.
We're in the central Arroyo Seco, and we're basically in the middle of the watershed. It's pretty wild.
You can tell how the entire world down here has changed. It's a perfect riparian habitat. We're not all the way up to where the trout spawn, but we're getting closer, it's getting greener, and it's getting a whole lot more beautiful.
The difference here is very apparent. In the lower part of the watershed, it's all concrete. But up here, the restored habitat is greener, with rocks and pools of water that trout love. But again, upstream barriers mean there are still no trout in here.
I've reached my final destination about 40 miles up from the LA River and Pacific Ocean meeting spot where this whole journey really began. And you can see how much different this area looks. There's rocks, there's pools of water. And now my hope is I can see if there's baby trout in this water.
At this last location, there's an isolated population of trout, which, like their cousins in the Pacific Ocean, are cut off from their migration route.
So this is where we found our 6-inch trout, as well as our 3-inch one. The small one is hidden underneath that boulder.
All right, let's see if we can sneak in there slowly and get some footage of one of these guys. Say ah!
Oh, wow.
That's really good.
I'll send you that too.
We got a glimpse of our first trout hiding under a rock, but to get the ultimate shot, I need to get wet.
This is a refuge for our trout. And this is also the largest pool, at least on the southern end out here.
So if we're gonna get any kind of photos or footage of them, this is the spot.
This is the spot. Shall we?
That's time. Honestly, I'm gonna work up a sweat just getting into this thing.
You're really just looking for habitat where you think they might be hiding out. You always go from downstream up because the trout are typically facing upstream looking for food coming down. And then you're just looking in bases of rocks, cracks, wherever you think that they might want to hide out.
Whew. I don't know what's more shocking, the temperature of the water or the fact that there's actually fish in there. Sure enough, he's in there. Got the shot, got a photo, and got some footage. Able to get in the water. There's cold as we expected it to be, and they were fish. So we're seeing trout up here. Fantastic. Rainbow trout?
Rainbow trout.
All right. Awesome.
From the Pacific Ocean 40 miles away to the mountains above Pasadena, I've followed the historic migration of steelhead trout. But unfortunately, the only place we can find the fish are in the ocean or way up in the mountains. The LA River is slowly being restored, but there are still challenges disconnecting this migration route. But with any hope and a lot of work, we'll one day see these fish return to their ancient ritual.